A forgotten Mitsubishi Zero lies twisted on the seafloor, a ghostly relic emerging from dim underwater light.
ROV cameras close in, documenting corroded details as surface crew begins precise visual survey of the wreck.
ROV backing away reveals the Zero's full shape, confirming this relic as a nearly complete surviving airframe.
A diver team descends from the salvage vessel, approaching the wreck cautiously to verify structural integrity for lifting.
Topside, Chief Engineer Kenji Hayashi coordinates the lift plan with crew, studying structural schematics on a digital tablet.
Divers secure bright lifting slings around the Zero's fuselage and wings, checking each shackle for perfect alignment.
On deck, the crane hook is lowered through misty sea air as crew prepare the main lift line for attachment.
A slow tracking shot along the cabin shows stripped seats, exposed insulation, and shafts of light piercing the gloom.
Breaking the surface, the corroded Zero emerges dripping seawater as the crane swings it gently toward the salvage deck.
Chief Engineer Kenji Hayashi watches intently as the dripping Zero is lowered onto padded supports on the ship's deck. Close-up shots linger on dripping rivets and barnacles as Kenji's gloved hand brushes the corroded Zero skin for the first time.
Time-lapse style overhead view shows the wreck being cribbed, strapped, and prepared for the journey to shore.
At dusk, the salvage vessel steams toward harbor with the Zero on deck, silhouetted against the fading horizon.
At the harbor, the Zero is offloaded from the ship onto a waiting low-loader trailer under powerful floodlights.
Chief Engineer Kenji Hayashi walks alongside the strapped Zero as the convoy leaves the harbor toward the restoration facility. Aerial night shot shows the convoy moving along coastal roads, the wrecked Zero bathed in escort lights against dark terrain. At dawn, the convoy arrives at a large restoration hangar complex, gates opening to receive the historic airframe. Inside the main hangar, the Zero is positioned under gantry cranes while the restoration team gathers for first inspection. I will restore the Zero to flight-worthy, historically accurate condition. The Zero is gently lifted from the trailer onto adjustable restoration stands beneath overhead gantry cranes in the hangar.
Lead Structures Technician Maya Tanaka performs an initial external inspection, marking impact and corrosion zones with paint.
Technicians remove loose marine growth and debris by hand, revealing underlying corrosion while preserving fragile structure.
Close-up macro view shows barnacles cracking away under tools, exposing deeply pitted aluminum beneath the marine encrustation.
Chief Engineer Kenji Hayashi and Maya Tanaka review 3D scans of the Zero's structure projected as a holographic model. Technicians set up a full photogrammetry rig around the Zero, capturing high-resolution images from all angles for documentation.
Close-up of a tablet screen shows a detailed 3D mesh of the Zero forming as photogrammetry images are processed in real time.
In a briefing area, the team studies projected cross-sections of spars and ribs, planning how to address severe structural damage. Back on the hangar floor, technicians begin removing large corroded panels, carefully labeling each part before storage. Close-up on a removed panel shows layers of corrosion and impact scars, contrasted with a clean reference blueprint beneath it.
Technicians pressure wash remaining debris from the Zero's stripped airframe, inside a controlled drainage bay with containment.
Extreme close-up shows high-pressure water stripping grime from a rib, revealing pitted but recognizable aluminum structure beneath.
After washing, the Zero's skeleton sits drying in the hangar, its bare structure now clearly visible for detailed assessment. Close-up inspection scenes show calipers and gauges measuring spar thickness and remaining material in critical load paths. Non-destructive testing begins as technicians apply dye penetrant to critical joints, checking for hidden cracks in airframe components. Under UV light, hairline cracks fluoresce, guiding decisions on which components must be replaced versus repaired. Chief Engineer Kenji Hayashi updates the digital restoration plan, overlaying structural data onto original Mitsubishi blueprints.
Systems specialist David Miller begins cataloging salvaged engine components laid out on tables for future testing and rebuild.
Close-up of an engine cylinder reveals rusted fins and seized valves, contrasted with a reference photo of a pristine radial.
A sweeping dolly shot passes through the hangar, capturing the full Zero skeleton, engine tables, and busy technicians in one view.
Kenji stands beneath the exposed wing, explaining structural challenges to Maya and David while pointing at key attachment points.
3D CAD animations overlay on live footage, showing the intended future structural state of the Zero compared to its current skeleton.
A close-up shows the Zero's identification plate being carefully removed and preserved, symbolizing respect for its history.
Kenji signs off on the final assessment report, marking the transition from documentation to structural repair operations.
The Zero's airframe is relocated into the structural bay, surrounded by heavy jigs and fixtures ready for precise deconstruction.
Laser alignment systems project grids across the Zero's skeleton, ensuring accurate geometry before structural components are cut away. Technicians mark cut lines on compromised spars with bright chalk and tape, carefully mapping each removal for replacement.
Close-up captures a cutting wheel slicing through a damaged frame segment, sparks contained by shields, and proper safety gear. Removed structural segments are placed on a comparison rack beside newly fabricated replacement parts for quality verification.
A dramatic overhead shot reveals the Zero's airframe with missing sections, jigs surrounding it, and new structural parts staged nearby. New spars are hoisted into position beside the Zero's empty wing bays, ready to replace the compromised original structure.
Close-up on rivet holes shows new spars matching perfectly to original attachment points, confirming restoration precision.
Welding specialists repair localized cracks on non-removable joints, their controlled arcs illuminating the Zero's inner skeleton.
Machinists in the adjacent shop mill complex curved ribs and fittings from high-strength aluminum blocks using CNC equipment.
Close-up reveals a freshly milled rib, its smooth surfaces and clean lightning holes ready to join the Zero's rebuilt skeleton. Back at the airframe, technicians fit the new ribs into the wing, clamping them into jigs for drilling and riveting later.
Kenji inspects the joined new and original structures, tracing his flashlight along joint lines to verify workmanship quality.
A close-up shows rivet heads being center punched and drilled, beginning the careful removal of a damaged skin panel.
A time-lapse segment shows the Zero gradually regaining its shape as new skin panels are installed along the fuselage and wings.
Now fully skinned in bare metal, the Zero sits on its landing gear stands, revealing the elegant lines of the restored airframe. Close-up pans along the bare metal fuselage, highlighting tight panel gaps, flush rivets, and subtle curvature of the Zero's skin. Kenji performs a formal structural inspection walkaround, checking each major area while referencing a digital checklist on his tablet.
Attention shifts to the engine bay as the replacement radial engine core sits on a stand, ready for complete teardown and rebuild.
Close-up captures valve covers being removed, exposing rusted rocker arms and accumulated grime inside the radial engine.
A long workbench shows disassembled engine parts arranged in order, each component tagged and measured for wear and damage.
In the cleaning bay, engine parts undergo ultrasonic cleaning, old grime dissolving in shimmering cavitation baths. Close-up macro shot shows cavitation bubbles collapsing against a dirty part, revealing clean metal as contaminants lift away. Back at the airframe, landing gear components are cleaned, repaired, and trial-fitted, restoring the Zero's signature taildragger stance. Close-up of a gear strut shows polished chrome and new seals, contrasted with archival photos of the gear in wartime service. With structure and gear secure, the Zero is towed slowly from structural bay to surface prep area, signaling the next restoration phase. In the surface prep bay, technicians begin fine sanding of the bare metal skin, smoothing joints, and preparing for primer. Close-up of the sanding process shows swirl patterns and gradually disappearing panel transitions under careful, even pressure.
Tasking crews careful tape off canopy frames, openings, and gear struts to protect them during primer application.
Inside the paint booth, the Zero is rolled onto grates as powerful ventilation systems roar to life for primer spraying.
A paint specialist begins spraying gray primer, moving in controlled passes along the wing, building an even protective coat.
Extreme close-up shows primer droplets settling on the metal, merging into a smooth, matte gray film over previous sanding marks.
After curing, the primed Zero emerges from the booth, its uniform gray surface emphasizing every line of the design.
Fine sanding of the primer coat begins, flattening any imperfections to create a flawless surface for the base color layers.
In the mixing room, paint specialists prepare historically accurate Zero base color, referencing documented IJN color research charts. The Zero returns to the paint booth for base color application, gray primer now ready to receive its iconic IJN scheme. Sprayers lay down the warm gray-green base coat in broad, even passes, transforming the Zero into a recognizable wartime palette. Extreme close-up reveals the sheen and depth of the new base coat, with subtle color nuances reflecting historical research. The Zero, now in full base color, rolls from the booth, its wartime silhouette reborn in period-correct tones. Marking layout begins as technicians project outlines of Hinomaru roundels and tail codes onto the fuselage and wings. Close-up captures tape and masking, forming perfect circles and crisp edges for the red Hinomaru on the upper wing surface.
In the booth, vibrant red paint is sprayed into masked roundel areas, the national insignia emerging against the muted base color.
Extreme close-up of peeling back masking reveals a crisp, perfect Hinomaru edge, red disc floating cleanly on gray-green paint.
Tail codes and unit markings are sprayed using stencils, adding historically accurate identity to the resurrected Zero.
Small stencils add maintenance markings and warning labels, completing the layered realism of the Zero's exterior finish.
The fully marked Zero stands under clean hangar lights, its exterior now indistinguishable from a wartime operational aircraft. Attention returns to the cockpit as restorers install restored instruments, levers, and controls into the detailed cockpit tub.
Extreme close-up shows original-style Japanese labels and placards being affixed, restoring cockpit authenticity down to fine print. Systems specialist David routes wiring and control cables through the restored fuselage, connecting the cockpit to control surfaces. Close-up captures control cables pulling smoothly over pulleys as technicians test elevator and rudder movement from the cockpit.
The overhauled radial engine, now pristine, is mounted on a stand next to the airframe, ready for integration and testing. Close-up pans across the overhauled engine, showing polished pushrod tubes, fresh wiring, and new hardware gleaming under lights.
Hold it there, steady. A little to the left, just a hair. Perfect, now lock it down. Okay, fuel line number 1. Check.
The restored propeller and spinner are installed, completing the Zero's unmistakable nose profile against the hangar lights.
A slow cinematic orbit shot circles the now fully assembled and painted Zero. Every detail of the
With the airframe complete, technicians perform detailed hydraulic system checks on flaps, gear, and brakes under controlled pressure.
Close-up shows flap hinges and actuators in motion, lubricated joints moving smoothly without play or binding under load.
Engine systems pre-oiling test begins, turning the prop slowly with ignition off to circulate fresh oil through the rebuilt radial.
Close-up on cockpit gauges shows oil pressure rising steadily during pre-oil, confirming healthy lubrication flow in the new engine.
The Zero is towed onto an outdoor run-up pad, chocked and surrounded by safety gear for its first engine start in decades.
Ground, do you read me? Loud and clear, pilot. All systems checked.
From a low nose angle, the starter winds and propeller blades begin to turn slowly, building momentum for ignition.
Close-up of exhaust stacks shows initial smoke clearing as the engine stabilizes at idle, smooth pulses replacing rough coughs.
RPM good, oil pressure good.
From behind, prop wash flattens grass and ripples jackets as the Zero holds run-up power, tethered by chocks and brakes. Engine throttled back to idle, the pilot signals shutdown, completing a successful first run and paving way for post-run inspections. Post-run inspection begins as panels are opened, technicians examining engine mounts, lines, and systems for leaks or anomalies.
Under the fuselage, technicians inspect gear doors, brake lines, and tailwheel after run-up, verifying no leaks or alignment issues.
Kenji, Maya, and David gather around a tablet replaying engine run data and GoPro footage, reviewing performance in detail.
With systems cleared, the Zero taxis under its own power for the first time, rolling cautiously along the taxiway.
Close-up from wheel level shows tires rolling, brakes being tested, and tailwheel tracking smoothly as taxi checks continue.
From the cockpit, a POV shot shows the Zero following taxiway lines, tail dragger nose obscuring forward view, requiring S-turns.
Kenji and crew observe taxi passes from the side of the taxiway, watching for tracking, engine behavior, and handling cues.
After taxi tests, the Zero parks facing the hangar, engine shut down, as the team prepares for final inspection before flight day.
In the hangar, a focused sequence of close-ups shows final torque checks, safety wire inspections, and panel fastener verifications.
A whiteboard timeline tracks the Zero's entire restoration journey, with the final milestone marked as First Flight, Go.
Dawn breaks over the airfield as the Zero is rolled from the hangar for its historic first post-restoration flight.
The Zero lines up on the runway threshold, engine run-up repeated, controls checked free and correct while tower clears for takeoff.
From a low side angle, the Zero accelerates down the runway, tail lifting as speed builds toward rotation.
A telephoto shot from down runway captures the Zero lifting gracefully into the air, wheels just clearing the asphalt. From a chaseplane perspective, the Zero banks gently, revealing its wings and markings gleaming against the bright morning sky.
Airspeed steady, gauges in the green. Increasing power to begin the climb. Trim adjusted, response is good.
From the ground, a long lens shot tracks the Zero's silhouette crossing the sunlit sky, a rare warbird shape resurrected.
Within the test area, the pilot cycles gear and flaps, verifying extension and retraction in flight under moderate speed.
Inside the hangar, crew members watch live telemetry and a tracking display, confirming that flight parameters remain within test limits.
As fuel and time limits near, the Zero turns back toward the airfield, descending in a controlled pattern for landing.
Observer's way.
A side-on runway shot shows the Zero touching down smoothly, main wheels kissing the pavement before the tail settles. From behind, cameras capture the Zero rolling out, gradually slowing as it exits the runway onto a taxiway.
Taxiing back to the ramp, the Zero passes its restoration hangar as crew jog alongside, capturing triumphant footage and photos.
Back at the parking area, the engine is shut down and the pilot climbs out to applause and relieved smiles from the entire team.
Kenji and the pilot review the flight on a debrief board, marking minor trim tweaks and noting the Zero's responsive handling.
Extreme close-ups focus on emblem details, crisp Hinamaru, tail codes, and maintenance stencils, testifying to research-led accuracy. In a split-screen style composition, archival footage of wartime Zeros flying is juxtaposed with shots of the restored aircraft in flight. A technician gently places the original identification plate beside the restored Zero, linking artifact to living aircraft once more. Kenji, Maya, and David stand in front of the Zero for a formal portrait, tools and blueprints visible as symbols of craftsmanship. Visitors enter the hangar for the first public unveiling, filing past interpretive panels toward the spotlighted Zero.
A generational connection to the restored Zero's story.
Wow.
Kenji stands slightly aside as visitors admire the Zero, his expression calm, letting the restored aircraft speak for the team's work. Preparations begin for the Zero's first public flying demonstration, checklists and maintenance logs updated after initial test flights.
Technicians perform cosmetic touch-ups on paint and panels, polishing leading edges and cleaning canopy glass for airshow perfection. Close-up of a microfiber cloth reveals reflections sharpening on the wing as surface haze disappears under careful polishing.
The Zero is weighed on calibrated scales under each wheel, confirming final weight and balance before full demonstration flights.
Charts and briefing documents lay out the planned demo routine: startup, takeoff, climbing turn, photo passes, and gentle maneuvers.
On airshow morning, the Zero is towed onto the flight line among other warbirds, drawing attention even while at rest.
Close-up of an informational placard in front of the Zero educates visitors on its recovery, restoration, and wartime history.
The demo pilot briefs with airshow control, reviewing safety boxes, emergency procedures, and timing within the warbird segment.
Pre-show, the Zero's engine is gently run up on the flight line, giving the crowd a visceral taste of its radial sound.
Cockpit detail shots show the pilot donning helmet and harness, hands resting briefly on original-style controls before taxi.
Radio check, over.
From the crowd's perspective, the Zero taxis out, radial engine barking at throttle inputs as it heads toward the active runway.
Zero, you're cleared for takeoff, smoke off, standard display profile.
The Zero takes off in front of the crowd, climbing into a clear blue sky as cameras track its every movement with excitement.
From show center, the Zero performs a smooth photo pass, banking slightly to present its profile and markings to the audience.
Air-to-air footage shows the Zero flying in loose formation with an allied warbird, symbolizing reconciliation and shared history.
Inside the crowd, veterans and historians watch the display, some visibly moved by seeing the rare aircraft fly again.
From below, the Zero performs a gentle climbing turn, sun glinting off wings as it transitions between display passes.
A slow-motion segment highlights subtle flex in the wings and slight control surface movements as the Zero slices through the air.
From the announcer's booth, the PA host narrates the Zero's historic role while it performs a final sweeping pass at show center.
The Zero climbs away from the field, arcs gently, and returns for landing as the crowd applauds the conclusion of its display.
Back on the ground, the Zero taxis in front of the crowd, pilot waving briefly as spectators salute the returning warbird.
Engine shut down. Chuck the wheels!
A tight shot on the Zero's nose and spinner shows faint heat waves rising, symbolizing both the engine's power and the day's efforts.
It's an honor to fly her. It's an honor to see her fly.
In the hangar later, data from the demonstration flight is reviewed, confirming performance remains well within safe parameters.
Number 3 spark plug is clean, moving to the oil filter. All right, log the filter change and confirm the propeller rotation.
Archival-style graphics overlay show the Zero's flight hours gradually increasing as it participates in more museum events.
A museum curator records video describing how the Zero's restoration connects global histories and educates future generations.
A top-down view of the hangar shows the Zero at rest among other exhibits, embodying the culmination of engineering effort and history.
The documentary shifts briefly to a detailed breakdown of the Zero's unique design features that restoration brought back to life.
A similar cutaway animation overlays footage of the real aircraft, aligning structural diagrams with the restored physical airframe.
A montage revisits key moments: wreck on seabed, corroded fuselage on trailer, skeletal frame.
Engineering rigor, historical research, and human dedication turned a forgotten wreck into a flying legend.
Inside the shop, Kenji quietly stores the last structural jigs and templates, physical tools of the rebuild no longer needed daily.
Maya gently runs her hand along an unused scrap of corroded original metal saved from the wreck, reflecting on what it once was.
David walks past the Zero at dusk, pausing to listen to the cooling ticks and residual smells of oil and exhaust from the day's flying.
Kenji writes a final note in his personal project journal, capturing the emotional weight of returning a Zero to the sky.
The camera lingers on the Zero's cockpit one last time, instruments inert but ready, seat harness neatly draped, canopy closed.
A final air-to-air sunset shot shows the Zero in silhouette against glowing clouds, capturing both.
The Zero fighter, though a symbol of destruction, serves as a powerful reminder of history. We must remember its.
A wide interior shot shows school groups gathered around the Zero as a guide explains its engineering and historical context. A close-up on a young East Asian girl sketching the Zero in a notebook shows how the restored aircraft inspires curiosity and creativity. An overhead crane shot moves from the Zero's wingtip down to a floor display of salvaged wreck fragments.
The film briefly revisits underwater ROV footage, contrasting silent depths with the vibrant.
A slow-motion shot captures a single drop of oil falling from a line into a drip pan, symbolizing the Zero's living mechanical nature. Kenji gives a short closing interview in front of the Zero, expressing hope that the project honors all who flew, fought, and built. A montage of smiles from the restoration team underscores the shared pride in seeing the Zero alive and flying once more. The Zero is shown secured in the hangar for the night, powered carts unplugged, covers on, like a guardian resting between missions. As credits begin, a final slow zoom on the Zero's painted tailcode fades to black, leaving viewers with the image of its new life. A map graphic highlights major museums around the world that preserve Zero fighters, whether flying or static on display.
Close-up on the map zooms into Japan, showing sites where Zeros are preserved as cultural and historical artifacts.
The map then shifts to North America, pinpointing museums where visitors can see a Zero up close, sometimes alongside former adversaries.
A quick montage shows static Zero exhibits. One elevated in a dim gallery, another nose-to-nose with an allied.
Archival photos fade in, showing wartime Zeros on carrier decks and island airstrips, connecting the restored machine to its original context.
A historian appears on camera, briefly explaining the Zero's impact in early Pacific air battles and why preserving one in flight matters.
The camera returns to the restored Zero's wing, where tiny stencils indicate regular inspection intervals, hinting at its ongoing care.
A quick cut to a maintenance whiteboard lists upcoming tasks, annual inspection, engine hours check, and scheduled demo dates.
In a quiet corner, an exhibit case displays project notebooks, early sketches, and metallurgical reports used to guide the restoration. A brief animated graphic compares the restored Zero's dimensions and performance figures to those of a typical contemporary fighter.
The documentary acknowledges that flying warbirds involves balancing authenticity, safety, and preservation, using the Zero as a central example.
Behind the scenes, a brief glimpse shows volunteers cataloging digital scans of drawings to ensure the restoration knowledge is preserved.
The corrosion here required careful chemical treatment before addressing the structural loads.
How long did that take?
That's where the project management becomes critical.
Students build simple balsa glider models after the lesson, referencing the Zero's wing shape as they experiment with lift and balance.
An animator's sketchbook appears, showing how the restoration footage inspired accurate CGI models used to visualize hidden structures.
A behind-the-scenes clip shows a sound designer recording actual Zero engine runs to create authentic audio for the documentary.
The sound designer is later seen layering these recordings in a studio, synchronizing them with flight footage for maximum impact.
A final educational caption reminds viewers that the restored Zero is operated under strict regulations and limited flight hours to preserve it.
Over the last few photos, a caption dedicates the project to all who flew and maintained these aircraft in wartime, on every side.
Credits continue over a faint, ghosted outline of the Zero's 3-view drawing, rotating slowly behind the names.